Going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka Unique Mazique, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. And like I told you in our last episode of At Me Bro, we were splitting out Ask Us Bro into its own show, and that's what this is. So we got how many questions do we have today? We had four questions, and they range from a few different topics. So we're gonna jump into those right now and get into it. So just like I say with At Me Bro, make sure that you subscribe, like this video, also share it, and if you have not followed us yet on Twitter, do that. It's at me bro. So the at symbol, me bro show. And use the hashtag ask us bro if you want to have your question featured on the show. So we're going to jump into the first one. It says, do you think that 2K should implement real life venues for park and pro am like NBA Live has? That would be amazing. So this person obviously thinks that that would be amazing. Let me make sure that I pull up and say who this person is, because I didn't do that in my notes. So we want to be able to say who it was. Your tweet's on the screen when you watch it, but I don't know what happened, what I did with that particular with who asked that question. Oh, here he is. It's my man, Dope D. He is one of the most
Ah, he was big
prolific.
for us last week. Let's
Yes, he's one
go.
of the most prolific Ask Us guys. So I got to make sure I say him. So yeah, so Dope D asked that question. For me, um, I don't put as much stock in that as a lot of people do. I think there's a lot of really overvalued licenses out there. I really do. I think there's a lot of licenses out there that just are not really that big of a deal. Like, would you like Park and 2K anymore if it was at Rucker? Like, would it
Well,
matter?
here's my answer to that. First of all, I think the NBA live courts look a lot better
Hmm,
as a result of the reference.
okay.
Some of them do. Some of them look really, really nice.
Some of them do.
And I enjoy the change of scenery that you get from doing that. However, I think the neighborhood is a good thing, the way they have the hub set up. I think they just need to improve the look of the neighborhood and the courts on the neighborhood. However, I do think that for special events, it would be really nice to travel to the Rucka for a tournament
Hmm.
held there, to travel to Venice, for a tournament held there. But at the same time, you could do exactly that with graphics that just look as good as, Rucker of
That's
Venice.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Um, so I don't know. I don't think the names are important, but I do like the change of environment you get from going to those different places. And I do think 2K has to work harder to emulate the effectiveness of the special atmosphere that those real courts provide.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's kind of what I was getting at when I said that I think there's a lot of overblown licenses or overvalued licenses, because I really think that you could accomplish the same thing if 2K created their own intellectual property of a fictional court. Like they almost did it back in the day when they had I forget the name of those courts. The different parks they had, Sunset something, and then they had another one, this Tri Steel City or Tri City, whatever they had, right? If they had stuck with that concept and created these courts that were just their own creations, and said, "Hey, this is this neighborhood, this is this park, this is that park," and like you said, literally make it visually look awesome. I think I think it would have been cool. I mean, I think you'd have you'd have some millionaire in real life throw a park up that looked exactly like it looks in 2K. And it would, instead of, you know, video games emulating a real life venue, I think you'd have somebody literally try to recreate the actual park from a video game in real life. I think 2K is big enough to the point where they could be that kind of an influence. So I don't
Hmm.
think they need to spend any money to any more money on a license. I mean, you're gonna pay over like $1 billion to the NBA over the next 7 years for for the NBA Players Association license and for the NBA license. And people are always talking, like, to me, what means more than that is paying to get, like, it would be more impacting to me to have Reggie Miller in my team. It'd be
Yeah,
more impacting to
yeah.
me to have Rasheed Wallace in my team, to have Charles Barkley in my team. If you're gonna throw some serious, ridiculous money at something, throw it at that, you know. So that's just where I am with that. All right, so the next question on Ask Us Bro. This one is a UFC question, and I think that it's really cool because during At Me Bro, we were talking about the light heavyweight division. And one of the reasons why I said that I am actually interested in more than just John Jones and whoever he's fighting is because of this guy and a couple other guys. She's Apples 23 or Paul asked, um, after the impressive showing from Johnny Walker, and he's talking about in the last UFC event in Fortaleza in Brazil. He said, "Is he now a legitimate contender for the light heavyweight title?" Now, I'm not gonna go as far as to say he's a legitimate contender just yet. He's only had two fights, although both of them have been, oh my god, impressive. He's only had two fights in the UFC. Um, but Johnny Walker is he's scary insane.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he is very, very charismatic. And he gets it, right? He gets it. After his first knockout, when he knocked out Khalil Roundtree, he gets on the microphone and starts begging Dana White to put him on the EA UFC 3 roster immediately, right?
Yeah.
Then next time he gets out there, he knocks out Justin Ledet in 35 seconds. And after the knockout, he falls, flips all around, does all types of worms and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, all of that, and this dude is 6'6"
Yeah.
and chiseled out of straight granite, right?
Mhm.
He looks like an action figure. So, but it's not all bulky muscle, like, like he's not gonna hinders his movement. This dude is insanely athletic at this size,
Yeah.
and it doesn't appear as though he's having problems making weight, right? uh I'm not ready to call him a legitimate title contender, even though just yesterday he called out Jimmy Manawa. So he has his eye towards the top of the 205 division. So um I am not saying he's a contender, but I'm definitely saying he's somebody's name you should know because he's not whiskey.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree on all points. I think he's a super exciting guy, really super fun to watch, obviously. Um, when we say contender, does that mean do you think he can beat John Jones, or do you think he'll fight John Jones as well as Gustafsson did the second to last time? I John is so over the moon great, and right now appears to be in great
Plugged
shape,
in.
totally dialed in. So by that definition, no. However, what I said was I'm interested in John and whoever he's fighting. And what I mean by that is the story of the number one contender is super interesting to me. Once we get out of people who are related to that story, I care less. So just that doesn't mean you have to be the number one contender. You could just be a guy that the number one contender or even the number two contender is looking over his shoulder at. I think Johnny Walker right now is that guy. I love that. And I'm very curious to see if he can take that next step to become that. But has he earned being a contender? No, I think, like you said, he needs more fights to be a contender. But I think he's definitely earned being the guy that the contenders look over their shoulder. Because there's always that moment where somebody is about to get either a championship fight or a number one contender fight. They could get either one sometimes in the UFC. But then something happens, somebody gets delayed, somebody finds a picogram or whatever, and they have to they have to fight somebody else.
Is that your picogram? That
It's
looks like your
right here,
picogram.
about the size of a millionth of a grain of salt. So and then there's that guy that they wind up fighting. And sometimes that guy changes what you thought would happen. I think right now Johnny Walker is that guy. I'm very happy to have him be that guy. And I'm very much looking forward to see what he transforms into for 2020.
Well,
When
I,
he
I
when he
think
probably will be a contender if he
I
keeps
think
going the way he's going.
I think the thing about Johnny Walker and what you got to see from him uh, is I got to see him fight a wrestler.
Yeah.
I got to see him fight a pure wrestler who is either able to attempt multiple takedowns or who actually succeeds in taking him down. And I need to see what happens then. Because as of right now, he has dominated guys in the really short fights with
Hmm.
his stand up. And there's no question the stand up is real. I've seen enough to know the stand up is real. The variation in the attacks, the smoothness in which he can throw those attacks. I'm already knowing there. And then the power is because Justin Ledet is not a guy that doesn't have a chin.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, dude, hook kick into a spinning back fist. I don't see lightweights doing that combination, let alone a 6'6", 205 pound light heavyweight. So that is pretty, and he wasn't 205 pounds when he did it. If you looked at him, he looked like he's closer to 230 when he did it. So what he rehydrated back up to, we don't know. But um, I need to see him fight a wrestler. Um, maybe Misha Serkinov, or maybe Jan Blachowicz. Somebody like that, someone who can take him down, and we see what happens when he gets taken down. Because I'm going to tell you, if he fights John does have a tendency of saying, "Okay, they say you're good at this. Okay, let's see. This is the way we're going to fight." Now, I don't know if he's going to do that as much now as he used to do, because before he used to just do these weird things to kind of like challenge himself. But when he fought Gustafson, what I realized was John said, "I'm coming out here to fight to win. I'm not playing no games. I'm about to
Hmm.
show you guys
And
that this is
completely shut him
and
down.
this is a wrap. We're
And
not doing
Gustafson at
nothing."
his size is an excellent
Yeah.
boxer.
Yes.
So
Very much.
and that's why I say the John Jones thing, like Johnny Walker has a long way to go in terms of just fighting people
Hmm.
before we can put him in that conversation. And that's why I would say the answer is no. But I think the journey to contender is very, very, very interesting for him. And I think he's probably two good fights away from us revisiting this conversation and having it at a elevated level to that. But no rush, like you said. There's a lot of good tests in light heavyweight. So
Yeah. Yeah. Dominic Reyes is the guy who's closer to being, I think, what Paul is attempting to put on Johnny Walker.
yeah.
I think Dominic Reyes is already the guy that you're saying Johnny Walker is. Johnny Walker's
Hmm.
not quite there yet. Dominic Reyes is a filthy, filthy light heavyweight, and he has a huge fight coming up. So if you're not familiar with him, Paul, I would say check him out, because I think he's a little bit ahead of Johnny Walker from an overall standpoint. All right, our next question, this one is kind of crazy because it's about Mortal Kombat, which I've been paying a lot of attention to. And it comes from Shitanya. Shitanya ask, will
Is
we
that a real
see?
name?
I don't know, but it's either Chaitanya or Shitanya. The Twitter handle is like MI 609997. I don't know. Maybe we got a bot. I don't know. Mortal Kombat NetherRealm has a bot, and they want us to talk about Mortal Kombat 11. So they're just manufacturing questions. But it says, "Will we see Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger in Mortal Kombat 11?" Now, obviously, I don't know because I don't work for NetherRealm, but I can give an opinion, an educated opinion on it. Um, I don't think so, and the reason being is because they just did that. Like, was that the last? Was that Mortal Kombat 10?
Both actually. Mortal Kombat 10, they had Jason. Mortal Kombat 9, they had Freddy.
Hmm.
If I was to answer, I would say the next big horror addition should be Clive Barker's Pinhead from Hellraiser.
Hmm.
And another really, really good one would be, um, well, they've been talking about a crossover with Capcom for a while.
Hmm.
The blockbuster one would be if we saw Nemesis from the Capcom games show up in the Mortal Kombat game.
Mm.
Because the reason they haven't crossed over isn't because they have some hatred for each other. It's just because the tone of the two games is so different. They don't
Yes.
want to see anybody doing a fatality to Cammy, right?
Right.
They're not down for that.
Fatality, Chun Li.
But it would be super dope to see a Resident Evil horror character in there,
Yeah.
or a Silent Hill horror character in there, having Pyramid Head in there. I've also heard a lot of rumors about Spawn. I agree with you that back to back we might not see Jason again, but I wouldn't be surprised if they brought Freddy back because Mortal Kombat X sold so well, and a lot of people really, really wanted to see Freddy. So I wouldn't be too shocked to see him
Yeah. What about, and
or
I'm not even,
Kratos.
I'm trying to think. But okay, because they did Leatherface too, right?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Now now wait a minute. No, is this the right friend? Is this the right? Nah, you got to help me out on this. Is this the same intellectual property of Warner Brothers? Could they have Pennywise?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if it's the same property.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because Pennywise would definitely seemingly be, um, a good fit for it because he definitely matches. Um, yeah, I don't know. Is that I don't know if it is under Warner Brothers.
It is Warner Brothers.
Okay, so there we go.
Ooh, Pennywise would be kind of sick.
Yeah, that
That's a
would
good
be
one.
kind of sick. Yeah,
It's a good one.
I think that might work. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I strongly doubt that we'll see Jason or Freddy this time. So we'll see. Okay, our last question. And of course, we gotta have some NBA in there. Now, this one kind of encourages reflection. This one encourages reflection for sure. So let me see if I can um put this one together. Actually, we had another one come through too, but we'll save that one for next week. But this question, I'm trying to see who this one is from. Here we go. This one is from Stephen Mado. Stephen Mado says, being longtime NBA fans, can you talk about the formative years that you fell in love with it, basketball or the NBA, and what have been some notable peaks or lows for you personally since that time? Do you can go first on that one,
When I fell in love, I've always liked basketball, like since I saw it. And that's how I became a Lakers fan because my early exposure to seeing things on a screen was Bruce Lee and basketball. And in one of those Bruce Lee movies was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And early on, I put together that they were the same guy, and that was nothing was more awesome to me than that. The fact that the guy who was in the karate movie with Bruce Lee, putting a big footprint on his chest, was also the guy shooting the sky hook. So before I understood who the Knicks were, I was a Kareem fan and by proxy a Lakers fan. And then, as I got older, I learned that you're supposed to be a hometown guy. I
though?
started watching the Knicks. And, by the time I was 10, 11, 12, the Knicks started to get really good. And, Jordan, New York rivalry kicked up. And I mean, to this day, there's few things in basketball history that were more engaging to watch than the Bulls versus the Knicks, particularly if you're in the hometown of either of those teams.
Yeah,
Never
well,
minding the fact that
we enjoyed it a little bit more than y'all did, but just
yeah, I mean, obviously you got the better of that. I mean, Michael's one of my favorite players. I'm not one of those people that hated Michael Jordan. Um,
you should have.
I just thought that I know you want to mess with me, but honestly, I actually really enjoyed the whole thing. The heartbreak. See, here's the thing. If you wanted to bother me, the heartbreaking thing about the Knicks was Patrick Ewing missing the layup against the
The
Pacers.
Pacers, yeah, I remember that.
That hurt.
Yeah, you didn't. Charles Smith
Charles
didn't bother you?
Smith, Charles, let me get to it.
Okay, I just
Charles Smith is balanced out by the fact that we completely robbed you with the Hubie Brown call.
yeah,
Not
the Hugh
Hubert
Hollins,
Davis. Hubert Davis.
and Hugh Hollins called it.
Yeah. But that Hubert Davis call. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like balanced out.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because Charles Smith, how dare you? How
Yeah,
dare you live and walk on this earth with the rest of us?
you smelly little fella. Yeah,
But that call, that right there,
yeah, the LJ, yeah.
that's tough. So it's evens. It's evens on that. And
LJ.
here's my thing. And this is when we get into the LeBron Jordan debate. Jordan was by far the best player in all of sports the entire time he walked the earth, including the times when Wayne Gretzky and Troy Aikman and all of these guys were doing their thing and killing it. Jordan was hands down the best athlete, let alone best basketball player. So the fact that we even made the God bleed, that for me, I never expected to beat the Bulls. I was always surprised when we pushed the Bulls. So, I wasn't like heartbroken over losing to the Bulls. The Pacers and the Heat, the fight, that was inexcusable if you're talking about highs and lows. So, in terms of personal, I like when they say personal highs and lows, they asking about life.
No, I think he means like your own personal thought on like,
Oh,
yeah, like about it. Not like, no, I don't think they want to know
well,
like
I'll tell you, I'm gonna be honest with you.
about like when your turtle died or nothing
The lowest the lowest
like
low in basketball for me personally, there's two. The post Jordan era before the Kobe draft was some really whack basketball.
Hmm.
Like it was a lot of not
That's the Tracy McGrady time
no
because he
no
dominated for
before
like 2 years.
Tracy. Before
Okay.
Tracy. No, I'm talking about before Kobe. After Jordan, before Kobe.
Okay. So wait
The
a minute.
Allen Houston, the years that
Was that
Allen
so
Houston,
before you're saying before Kobe became
no,
Kobe?
because Kobe, yeah,
Yeah.
before Kobe like showed up.
Because he was
He was
because
drafted in
I think
90,
97, 98 season, I think, right?
correct, and Jordan retired in that season, right?
Jordan left in
No,
the
a
90.
season later.
Yeah, no, 95, 96 is that last well no 95, 90. No, Jordan retired in 97, 98.
Yeah,
That was the first, well, the second retirement.
right. So that second retirement until the Lakers showed up was whack. Once the Lakers showed, once Kobe saved the league for me. Like once Kobe came in and was Kobe, everything was fine because
No,
he held it down.
Kobe's rookie year is 96, 97, not 97, 98. It's the year
Yeah.
before.
Once the Lakers came back up and Kobe started to become one of the best players in the league, then Iverson, he showed up and started doing his thing. Tim Duncan started becoming great, and more importantly, the rivalry with the Kings and the Lakers in the Western Conference was like amazing. Then it started to get good again. But there was a little while where all we had to watch was like Allen Houston and Reggie Miller, and there was a lot of young players like, oh, this is not as good. Clearly not as good, especially when Jordan had just left.
Yeah.
That wasn't as good. The other dark period, I'm gonna be honest with you, was immediately when Kevin Durant signed to the Golden State Warriors
Hmm.
because it threw the whole. It wasn't because of what the league became; it was what the league was right before then. Right before that happened, the Thunder, the Spurs, you know, the Cavs, the Golden State Warriors, and a whole bunch of younger teams were all slated to be really competitive. It was four highly competitive teams, but it was expanding. And it looked like we were going to move into this golden age of like legitimately having four teams on each side that could win the championship. And you don't know who is going to win. And here's a thing about that people don't understand about the Golden State thing and why I don't think Golden State is the best version of basketball you can see. When you have two superstars and everybody else is either a fringe all-star or a role player, the superstars or one of the fringe guys has to play way better than they've ever played in order to beat their opponent at some point. Somebody has to shoot out of their mind, like Klay Thompson versus Oklahoma City.
Hmm.
Somebody has to make a crazy defensive play like LeBron James versus Golden State. When you put a whole lot of all-stars on the same team, their ceilings all come down and they're allowed to be okay for several games, sometimes in the playoffs. And the bar used to be that if your all-star was only okay for like more than 2 games in the playoffs, y'all probably lose unless a Vernon Maxwell saves you or something.
Hmm.
And that was the difference. And to me, that was overall more exciting than stacking a whole bunch of players on the same team. And what's happened since then is the regular season has gotten more interesting, but the playoffs is only interesting for me up until that point where Golden State is basically guaranteed to win. So right now we're still in an era with the finals. I don't know when the next time we're going to have an exciting finals while Kevin Durant's on Golden State, but the finals haven't been good since the Cavs won. And that has been a low point for me, even though the rest of the league I still very much enjoy right now.
Hmm.
Though they need to put defense back in the game, which is
Yeah,
also a low point. They need
that's a
that
low.
defense back in.
Yeah, that I was definitely going to mention that as a low point for me. The high point for me is pretty obvious. Um, high point
Yeah.
for me is 6 times in
Derrick
8 years.
Rose.
No,
Oh, yeah, no,
six
okay.
times in 8 years.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
I mean, that was. I mean, I had experienced the championship in Chicago once in 1985 with the Bears, but we hadn't had another championship. It took 5 more years before Chicago had another champion. And as a longtime Cubs fan, it was a long time for that too. So 6 times in 8 years, and just getting the opportunity to watch the greatest player that ever lived on a daily basis or every other day. That's, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I talk about people um, who talk bad about LeBron. You know, you don't realize what you're getting a chance to see right now. You know, when Mike was in his prime, NBA wasn't as visible as it is now. You didn't get a chance to watch every single player all the time, right? You got to watch your guy and whoever they put on well, when I was a kid, whoever they put on CBS with Dick
Hmm.
Stockton and Tommy Heinsohn, and pretty much all you're going to see was the Lakers in the late game, maybe the 76ers, the Celtics, and maybe the Bucks. And every blue moon, the Bulls would be on. And the Knicks didn't even get on very much then, because at that time in the 80s, the Knicks were really bad. So um, that time was a great time because it was a privilege, and I understood that it was a privilege to watch Mike all the time. um Another great time was absolutely Derrick Rose. I had never had a chance to root for somebody on two different levels. you know Michael Jordan's not from Chicago. you know so while we loved him, he wasn't from Chicago.
No,
you
he was
know
he was born in Brooklyn.
He was born in Brooklyn, raised in Carolina. So
Yeah.
he, we didn't get a chance to we didn't get a chance to, to I didn't get a chance to have that same connection with him. Ryan Sandberg wasn't from Chicago. Walter Payton wasn't from Chicago. Mike
Hmm.
Dicker wasn't from Chicago, and on and on and on. Derrick Rose was a great player, won MVP. He was from Chicago. He was not even from Chicago. He was from my, like, just outside of my neighborhood, like the next neighborhood west of where I live. That's where he was from. So it was um it was crazy. And I saw him play when he was still in high school. I worked at the group home, and I took a we took a bunch of kids to see him play in the public league final against Washington High School. And I had been hearing about him, but I got a chance to watch him. And I said, who is this boy? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, this dude, because I'm older than him. So I was a grown
Hmm.
man, and I'm looking at this kid. I'm like, who in the world is this boy? I'm like, literally, he could play all five positions right now, but he's also the fastest guy on the floor. So what is
Yeah.
really going on? So all of that that's leading up to him being on my team, becoming great, and winning an MVP, that was like amazing. So that whole time was just great. Um, just overall. The worst times, a lot of people would point to like the Tim Floyd years, but
Or
for
today.
me, well, no, that I'm gonna get to that. To me, the Tim Floyd years weren't as bad to me because I felt that the Bulls and Bulls fans had already enjoyed more success in an 8-year time period than most NBA fans get to see in their entire life.
See,
So,
that's a great point. And that's something people don't understand. People ask me about the Giants all the time, right? And I
mhm,
say, we beat Tom Brady twice
mhm,
and won the Super Bowl doing so.
right,
You can't talk to me till like 2025.
right,
When something that good happens, you
yes,
accept, especially if your city has suffered, right? Like if
yeah,
I was a big baseball fan, I would have no
yes,
concept
I
of
have,
baseball suffering because the
right,
Yankees are basically always fantastic, basically.
yes, they're never
But
horrible.
right, but because of the Knicks, I understand what sports suffering is. And if you have any concept of sports suffering, you know sometimes it's not going to be your turn.
Hmm.
So when it was just your turn, you know the Tim Floyd years is coming.
It's coming. You know it's
Yeah.
coming. And some people like, oh, he ended Jerry Krause ended it too soon. And man, no, dude. That's ridiculous, man. That's why I say Jerry Krause does not get the credit that he deserves. And a lot of people who were involved with the Bulls organization around that time, they say that same thing. Even Mike, who hated him, for a time, says the same thing. He did not draft Mike, but he traded for Scottie Pippen on draft day. He drafted Horace Grant. He traded Charles Oakley for Bill Cartwright. He drafted BJ Armstrong. He scouted and maneuvered and drafted Tony Kukoc when it wasn't in vogue to go overseas to get into international players. He did all of those things. And he fired Doug Collins and promoted Phil Jackson.
Hmm.
Come on, man. A lot of that is all him. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? He's doing that. And a lot of it he did when with Mike saying he wanted him to do something else. Because and we all saw Mike don't need to be running the team. So I you know what I'm saying. So so those are definitely the best times for me. The worst time for me, as far as from a personal standpoint in the NBA, is really is while I just love basketball, right? I just love basketball. So I don't have to, my team doesn't have to be playing well for me to be plugged in, which is what tells me that I love basketball a little bit more than football. Because when the Bears are not involved, I tend to back off. I know what's going on, but I'm not like, bam, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? In basketball, it kind of doesn't matter. But from a more personal standpoint, right now is a low for me from a basketball standpoint. And it's not just because the Bulls are bad. I said this on a previous episode. The Bulls are bad, and I don't see any hope,
Yeah.
like anywhere, anytime soon. And
Yeah.
that's what you get when you have bad management and just like ownership is just whatever. People used to say something really morbid about the Blackhawks, and I'm not implying the same thing with the Bulls, but it's almost a similar situation. People used to say the Blackhawks were owned for years by Bill Wirtz, right? Um, Bill Wirtz, super rich guy, owned the team forever. And they used to say the Blackhawks are not going to win until Bill Wirtz passes away because he's not going to ever do it. He once had a quote that says, the word he says something like the worst thing you can do is go around trying to win the Stanley Cup.
Mm.
Something weird, or it was something to that effect, but it's something strange, right? But it showed you that it was a business to him. And it's got to be a business, but fans would not want their owner to say something like that. Fans want their owners to go, all out trying to win. And that wasn't what he was doing. And I think that the Bulls are in a similar situation. Not saying that I'm wishing death on Jerry Rice or anything like that. I would never say that. But I'm saying until ownership is shifted, and until management is shifted, the Bulls are not going to win. Jerry Reinsdorf is all in to make the White Sox a winner. He got lucky with Michael Jordan. He lucked up on a transcendent talent that changes everything. And if the Bulls don't luck up on another transcendent talent, that's their only hope. And it has to come through the draft because historically, we have never been good without our core coming from the draft. We're not the Lakers. Okay. We can't just go sign guys in free agency, right? We can't do that. The trades that we've done that have worked have all come as there have been supplemental pieces, but the core guy has always been a draft guy.
And see, that's why I'm 100% with you, and that's why when people ask me about the Knicks, like they expect me to be so hurt that the Knicks aren't good. The Knicks have been bad for so long. What they don't understand is that we've shifted. I
Mhm.
believe in Scott Perry and Steve Mills, and they've done a lot of good since they've. And I do believe in Fizdale too, because
Mhm.
even while tanking, our talent is growing and developing. Like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't put this on him because I know it's a bad thing to say about a coach, but I wouldn't be surprised if he intentionally used rotations to lose because the guys are good enough to win some of these games. And we've had a lot of them close games. And I'm glad that he's doing that because we need to do the smart thing. I feel like we've gotten out of the valley of no hope. We've got good leadership. We've got all our draft picks. We ain't spending no bad money. We have no bad contracts.
And you
And
still New York.
we're New York, right? Brooklyn's good too. I've grew up in Brooklyn, so I'm rooting for Brooklyn. So you know, I'm cool with where we are now because we've been where you guys are, where coach not great situation, draft picks, some didn't pan out, some have, but the ones that we have, we gonna mess it up. You know what I'm saying? Like paying players who don't need to be paid, management not on the right page, the rest of the league ain't nobody coming here right now, no way, no how, and make it work even if they wanted to. Like all that stuff, we've been through all that. And this isn't the Eddie Curry, Jamal Crawford, Isaiah Thomas, Larry Brown
And it's
Knicks.
so funny. You just said Eddie Curry, Jamal Crawford. And I thought you was talking about us because we drafted
Right.
both in place.
Right, right. So, you know, you guys as a, hoops fan, Chicago fan, y'all need to get out of the valley of no hope. I feel like the Knicks are already out of the valley of no hope,
I think
even
so.
though we're both losing teams.
I mean, and the Knicks have the worst record and all of that,
Thank
but
God.
I don't
Thank
think.
God.
But the thing of it is that they are in a better position than the Bulls. They are because the Bulls are bad, and it doesn't really make any sense that they're as bad as they are
Right.
because the Bulls are more talented than their record. And I mean, dude, Laurie Market and Zach Levine, Chris Dunn, Bobby Portis, these are decent players from a talent standpoint. I mean, these guys singularly are people who would probably be attractive to some teams. I mean, some people have some issues with Zach Levine's efficiency, for sure. And he may very well be one of those players we were talking about on Admi Bro, who's a trap player and not a needle mover, but a stat guy. He may very well be that kind of guy, but he's still a 20 point a game guy, you
Hmm.
know, and Laurie could be a 20 point a game guy as well if he could get the opportunity. Wendell Carter's a good player. I mean, it's just that's why it's so bad right now because you're looking at this team and you're going like nobody thought the Knicks would be much better than they are now. Nobody thought that. Like
No, with Porzingis not playing. And I'll
yeah,
be honest, the only alarming thing about the Knicks is I just hate the way our defense looks. But offensively, going towards the future, looking at our young talent, I'm totally comfortable with it. And we've had a lot of people not play.
yeah, and
Mitchell
then
Robinson's been a ton of
it
time.
always feels good when you have people contributing who weren't drafted really high.
Hmm.
Alonzo Trier, Mitchell
Hmm.
Robinson when he's out there. And even Kevin Knox, not that he was drafted low,
But he's
but if
not top five.
but he's not top 5. And if you see how he's playing, he's probably a top 5 rookie for sure.
Correct.
So that makes you feel good. But
Hmm.
it doesn't make you feel good when you're looking at your team and you suck and you're looking at the roster and going like, man, I wouldn't even I wouldn't even bench him.
Hmm.
Man, I wouldn't bench him either. So why do we keep losing? Like that's kind of the way
And
it
it
is.
goes. It also goes to how you look.
Yeah.
And you can see it, man. Like you can. I've called it a couple of times. I called it in Brooklyn. I said, you know what? The Brooklyn Nets are playing really hard right now. This was two
Hmm.
years ago. It's like
Yeah.
we have a
And
good coach in Brooklyn.
and
We just
think about the fact that they lost Karis LeVert. And
and
and,
in the
and and
sixth place,
yeah,
that's bananas.
that's crazy.
That's bananas. So I'm with you, man. It's just about how your team looks. And if your team was playing really really hard, you would know. Once these guys just stayed a little longer, we just need one more good draft pick. Somebody will come here in a sign and trade, and we'll be competitive again. But they don't look good.
No.
The situation don't look like it's going up, and
It
that
don't.
sucks.
Yeah. The only thing that can reinvigorate the Bulls and their franchise and the fan base is to clean house completely. And it's unrealistic to look for new ownership. He's not going to sell the team. He's going to give it to Michael, his son,
Hmm.
when he is done with it for whatever reason. But he's not going to sell the team. So that's the thing about it, and that's why for me this is absolutely the worst time to
Yeah,
from a NBA basketball standpoint. So
that was a good question. Thanks for that one.
it was a good question. So that's all we got today for Ask Us Bro. I appreciate it. And we say ask us, bro, but um you could also, ask us, girl. It doesn't matter if you're a lady, you know, You can be an honorary bro. It's cool. So it's not. Don't think that that means that we're not inviting.
It's just a catchier name.
Just a catchier name, you know. So that's all. So you feel free. Feel free. So I appreciate everybody watching as usual. Like I said, like, subscribe, and share. We appreciate it. God bless. Peace.